Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Smack Talk Live. I guess you could say holiday edition. I'm Coach along with Lone Wolf, and it's been kind of a wild day in the NFL. Kind of a wild week, I guess you could say. Just watched the young kicker from the Falcons shank a kick to go in overtime. So why don't we start with that game? You know, I get it. The Chiefs are good. I get it. They are one of the favorites to win Super Bowl. I don't know if they're as dangerous as people think they are because they have struggled at times. The Falcons are not a good football team.
No.
And you're at home. And
so is it more of a reflection of the Falcons just simply playing better as they have under Raheem Morris, or the Chiefs have struggled in certain games like you're seeing here? Against the Dolphins, they struggled. Patrick Mahomes had 3 interceptions. Is it more a reflection of that?
Well, I'm telling you right now, the Chiefs should have lost this football game.
Yeah.
The Falcons fumbled down at the Chiefs 20.
Right.
And then, granted, it would have been an amazing interception, but the Falcons can't pull an interception with under 2 minutes to go. And that would have sealed the game. And I mean, it was a clearly underthrown ball. It wasn't, I just don't know what to make of the struggles, because here's the thing. It's not like the Falcons have played better, but it's not like they're all of a sudden like this really good team.
No, I agree. Yep.
They've played better.
Yeah, I mean they've played better. They've destroyed the Raiders, which, I mean, obviously they fired their defensive coordinator. They've played better in games, but no, they're not a playoff team even in this situation at all. So,
but I mean, they played better. They're still 4-11,
right,
and have now lost 4 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you lost to the Chargers,
right.
So, if I am a Chiefs fan, I am concerned because there's a team that you have to play to get to the Super Bowl that's playing really, really good football right now, called the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you right now, if the Chiefs play the way they did today, and it would happen to be Buffalo, Kansas City in the AFC Championship game, I'm taking Buffalo.
Oh, yeah, me too, hands down. Yeah. But Buffalo is humming right now, all the way across the board. Their defense is playing a lot better, more like what we kind of thought the Buffalo defense would play like.
Yeah. And I'll tell you right now, if we had to sit here today and say, these 2 teams, you're most confident to make the Super Bowl, and I called it last week with some people I signed to, I said it's going to be Buffalo Green Bay Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, and I'll tell you right now, I like Buffalo's defense. I don't think they've seen a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers yet. Yeah, you can say Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, what makes him dangerous is his ability to run.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets outside the pocket, and then people suck up on him to stop him from running, and then he hits the deep ball. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to do that. He can stand in there and deliver the ball on a dime in the pocket
Right.
with people around him. That's a totally different thing. I think it would be a shootout, but I still think Green Bay would win that game.
And I think that Rodgers is at a point in his career where he can still scramble. You've seen him be able to do that effectively. So he's not a statue back there. He's not a liability like some guys at around that age. But yet he kind of reminds me of like when Tom Brady was at his absolute best in New England, like when he had his best years in New England. Rodgers is playing at that same level right now. And some people might say, well, Brady's still playing great. Yeah, he's good, but he's not at the maximum, the best that he had been. Like Rodgers is getting the ball out of his hands so quickly and so effectively. There's really nothing you can do. He doesn't have to improvise in order to do well.
No.
And I feel like, yeah, like you said, sometimes Mahomes, because he's so athletic and because he can improvise, he'll do that. Rodgers doesn't have to do that at all.
Right,
And hasn't
exactly.
really this year. Yeah.
And that's what I know Buffalo's defense is good. It's not taking any away. I still think Green Bay would beat them because I think
Yeah.
their offense and Rodgers it changes that complexity
Mm-hmm.
of that of having to face a offense. Yeah, Kansas City, they have the weapons, they have the speed,
Right.
but I think Buffalo can figure out how to beat that. Um, like today, Atlanta really did not try to stop the run.
Right.
They did not. I watched that game because I had both Travis Kelce and Kelvin Ridley on my fantasy team, so I was like,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
perfect. You know, um, so it's going to be
But
interesting.
nor do you really need to do that. The Chiefs started off, and I watched the game week one. This is a long time ago, and we were talking about a lot of different things back in week one when they played against the Texans. And, Clyde Edwards-Helaire kind of went off in that game, and you thought, oh, my gosh, the Chiefs are going to have a running game. That really hasn't materialized over the course of the season. They're able to do enough. But like you said, defensively, they didn't key in on the run at all.
Right.
They don't have
And
to.
that's the thing. If I'm playing the Chiefs, I'm telling them run the ball against us.
Yeah.
I'm not letting Mahomes beat us.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. I don't think the Chiefs are clear-cut favorites to win the AFC. I really don't. I think the Bills are a legit threat there. We'll talk about this a little bit more as we go along. But I would be concerned because and I know it's a would have, could have, should have. The Falcons should have won that game today. They shot themselves in the foot multiple times.
And a better team does. And a better team does win that game.
Right.
That's the thing. Yeah.
So let's go to the scoreboard. I know we haven't done this in a couple weeks, but
right.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I'm just aching to talk about this game, so I'm just gonna bring it up. How about the Browns versus the Jets? The Jets are still winning this game, and there's a minute 59 left in the fourth quarter. Now, Rex Ryan, this is your Super Bowl team right here, losing to the Jets. What's going on with the Browns?
Well, and I thought Baker was supposed to lead that, be the guy finally. He was
right.
And I'm sorry if you're the guy. This isn't a game.
No, not at
all. But here's the thing. Last week, if the Jets pull this out, okay, Jets fans are furious that they won last week because they're all upset because they aren't going to get Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a great NFL quarterback. People are saying he's generational talent. I don't see it. But
Yeah.
anyways, if they win this game, Adam Gase may not get fired.
Right.
Talk about a kick in the gonads for all Jets fans. Because he probably can sit there and say, "Hey, they should have beat the Raiders. We should have beat the Raiders." You know, that they can go through and say we were this
Right.
close in all these games. We ended up upsetting two top teams in the NFL the last 3 weeks of the
Yeah, I
season.
mean, you beat two teams in a row, or well, you might beat two teams in a row, that are halfway decent. I mean, the Browns are a playoff team, so if they beat the Browns this week, they are beating teams that they really should have no business beating.
Right.
The Rams and the Browns. I mean, that's just embarrassing. So yeah, I mean, Mayfield does not look efficient.
I mean, I'll give you this. He's 27 of 51 for 276 yards.
Right.
No touchdowns, no interceptions. Their running game, which has been their staple all year. And I don't know if this is Kevin Stefanski starting to, think, oh, Baker's back. We can throw the ball more, blah, blah, blah. They have a total of 17 rushing attempts.
Right.
You
And I
thrown the
was going to
ball.
say Nick Chubb has 28 yards rushing. What is your game plan here?
They
What are you
have,
doing?
they have 17 rushing attempts for 45 yards. Now they have 52 pass attempts.
Yeah. Yeah, and Mayfield and granted the Browns are driving right now. So they have a chance of potentially tying this thing up. But you look at it and that's not the formula to win your games if you're the Browns. Maybe the Jets actually try to take away the run from the Browns. I don't know. I didn't watch most of this game, so I don't know what they were doing.
But Lone Wolf,
But
let's be honest. I don't care if the Jets put 10 guys in the box. It's
it
the
shouldn't matter,
Jets.
yeah.
They stink.
Yeah. Yeah,
They
it shouldn't
stink.
matter.
You should be able to line up and run your base play over and over again on the run and get average at least 3 to 4 yards a run. They're averaging 2.6 yards a carry.
If you're executing it like you're supposed to, then yeah, for sure.
That it's that this is. I want to hear if the Browns end up winning this game. I
Yeah.
want to hear the excuses. It's now
Right.
4th and 1 from the Jets 16.
Right.
Play the
I do
game
too.
on here.
Right here. Yep. I want to hear it too because I want all these people that were saying, like we just talked about. I just called them out. Rex Ryan, Baker Mayfield. Oh, blah blah blah. This could be a Super Bowl team. Look how good he's playing. This is not a Super Bowl quarterback. This is not a Super Bowl team. Look at how they're playing against this team. You shouldn't be down by a touchdown to one of the worst teams in football in the fourth quarter.
In the history
No.
of football, not just football,
Yeah.
history.
This is a horrid team.
This is a
Horrid team.
horrid team.
Yeah.
And that's why you heard Sean McVay basically, for the first time in his entire head coaching career, rip his team apart last week.
Oh yeah.
He knew that was abysmal, and they should have just been able to show up and win that game.
Yeah. And it's a home game. You mean sit in your home turf and you have a winless team come into your home turf at 0-13 and they come in there and they beat you.
Yeah.
And they didn't pound you, but who cares? They beat you.
They beat you.
And that's all that matters in that situation.
No, there's a play under review. So I don't know if it must have been a sneak or something because it says last play 4th and 1. They're reviewing this.
Yep,
This could determine the game. Really,
the Browns don't get it here. Yeah.
You think about this for the Jets. It doesn't matter if they win because they aren't going to get the number 1 pick, win or lose, unless Jacksonville wins the game. And I'll tell you what, they're not winning next week.
No, they're not winning next week.
Out. The Bears just throttled them this week.
Right. And honestly, I mean, we'll get into that coaching piece a little bit later, but I mean, you throttled the Jaguars, so it doesn't really mean a whole lot to me as looking at the Bears and Matt Nagy and what have you. But yeah, the Jags have cashed it out. They're done for the season. That's absolutely clear. I think their last performance, maybe they put a little into it, was against the Vikings. Maybe
Yeah,
I don't know. That's about it, I think, and they're done. They're absolutely done.
they're done. I don't know who they play
If
next.
Marone isn't gone, I would be amazed.
So, I'm sure his office is already bare bones empty.
Yeah.
So,
You
um,
clear out what you need to clear out at this point.
so I mean, I'm waiting to see. I'm trying to hold off switching my
Oh
screen
yeah, just to
to
see
see what happens when it's
what comes of
played.
this game here. Yeah,
But
yeah. Still there? All right. Well, looks like we're having some technical difficulties there. I'll leave here.
all right, just hold on, everybody. We are having some technical difficulties. We lost Lone Wolf. Um, um, but the looks like the Jets are going to hold on and win this game. There was a fumble. They recovered. Um, and the Jets have defeated the Cleveland Browns.
Okay, I'm back in.
All right. I'm not sure what happened there. I don't know if my browser closed or what. All of a sudden, I'm like, what's going on? But, anyways, in that little interim and little pause there, the Jets have beaten the Cleveland Browns. There was a fumble on the 4th and 1. The Jets recovered. And the, the New York Jets
Wow.
have beaten the Cleveland Browns.
Wow. Just
Um,
wow. I mean, any team that's losing to the Jets like this now, you have to question their legitimacy as a playoff contender, because this is late in the season. This is when teams get ready, make runs, get heated up for the playoffs. And if you're losing to a team that's just shameful, this does not bode well for you in the postseason.
Absolutely not. I mean, and again, we said it. This tells you right now, Baker Mayfield is not a NFL franchise quarterback.
Right.
He's
These are the
not.
type of games you have to go out and excel in. You
Yeah,
know, against the Jets, there are no excuses for you. This is how you play. You're 28 of 53 for 285 yards. Okay, you had a decent amount of yardage, but that's inaccurate, and you scored no touchdowns through the air. If you're really elite, if you're really a franchise quarterback, you're playing a hell of a lot better in this game.
Exactly. It is um, inexcusable. And I put part of this too on Kevin Stefanski. I mean, you are built on running the football and you don't run the ball. That would be like Green Bay only letting Aaron Rodgers throw the ball 12 times.
Right. Right. That makes absolutely no sense.
Find a way to run the ball. It's the
Yeah.
Jets. It's the Jets.
Yeah. You can't tell me that you can't run the football against the Jets.
Right. If you can't run the football against the Jets, you can't run the football against anybody.
Right. Well, like you said, there are no excuses. Look, and you didn't try. So how many attempts did they have? You said 17 attempts at running the football all told.
Yeah. It is bad.
Yeah, that's
It's
bad.
bad.
That's not nearly enough for what you normally do when you're running your offense.
And now that leading into this game, the Steelers clinched the AFC North. They came back and beat the
The
Colts
Colts, yeah, yeah.
28-24. Now, does this say that they're back? No. No,
No,
I'm still concerned with the Steelers, but they do have the offensive firepower and the defense, I think, to give the Bills and the Chiefs a game.
yeah.
I, I don't know if they can beat them.
I
Uh,
expected them to win this week, though. I mean, Mike Tomlin is a good coach, and I think they had a funk, they had a slide, and they figured things out. And I kind of thought that they would, you know, because they're not a bad team, and yes, they do have a shot in the postseason. So I was expecting them to win this game. The Colts don't, I like them. I like them as a team, but I don't think that I don't see them making a deep run in the postseason.
right. Couple other games. Bagels come back, beat the Texans. The Texans really, kind of hurt me in fantasy. I had their defense this week.
Yeah.
They scored a whopping -7 points for me.
Even better
Luckily, I
than the
had some
Jets
other guys.
defense.
Luckily, I had some other guys that pick up the pieces, and I still have Tony Pollard and Stephon Diggs playing, even though he has what's his name from the Texans, the receiver from the Texans, Brown and Josh Allen. I'm up by 39 points.
Oh, okay. You're in good shape then. That's
So
good.
I should be okay. I'm hoping Tony Pollard. I don't think Elliott. There's something wrong. I think with Elliott.
There really is, I mean, and that's when we were talking about this a little bit before the show. Elliott hasn't scored a touchdown in over 8 weeks. He hasn't really hit the 100-yard mark very much this season. I think he has 800 and some yards this season, maybe a 1 or 2 100-yard games, if that. One game for sure that I can remember, but he's not the same guy. And I don't know if getting COVID before the season has anything to do with that, or if it's just he's in a funk, or they're not using him the same way. Which for certain, I mean, this is McCarthy, so they probably aren't running the same types of plays. But yeah, there's just something there that's not gelling for him.
Well, I think part of it is not having Prescott, not having Dak, because those
Yeah,
first couple
yeah,
weeks, I had both I had Ezekiel Elliott, and he was scoring monster points.
sure.
Um, so I think losing Prescott really hurt them offensively. I honestly do not see Elliott in Dallas next year with the emergence of Tony Pollard. They need the cap space because they need to sign Dak Prescott. There's going to be
Right.
some big names leaving Dallas this offseason. I have a feeling if
Yeah.
they know what's best for the franchise, which again is Jerry Jones. I've been critical of Jerry Jones for a long time, um, but
Right.
anyways,
Well, and that's just like you said, if they know. And I don't know. I would imagine though they've trapped themselves in their own little conundrum here with Dak Prescott, because you almost have to resign him at this point. But if you resign him, you have to sign him to a huge contract, which means you're hindering yourself in every other area. So you kind of trapped yourself in this thing of your own making. and it's going to harm them in all other areas when they do cash out with Prescott. It's going to be tough.
So I'm just gonna say this. Going backtracking a little bit, I just pulled up the playoff standings.
Mm-hmm.
The Cleveland Browns were fourth, I believe, fourth or fifth. That loss puts them down to the 7 seed,
Yeah.
and they're only ahead of Indianapolis for overall head to head. So if Cleveland, who I believe plays Pittsburgh next week,
I think they do.
plays Pittsburgh, they play Pittsburgh next week. Indianapolis, who do they play? Come on here, internet.
They play the Jaguars.
So Indianapolis is going to win next week.
Right.
if the
Guaranteed. Yeah.
if the Browns don't win next week, they may not make the playoffs. Now I don't know what the tiebreaker between the Colt, like if say the Colts, because like if Green Bay beats Tennessee this week, now there's a tie there again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who has that tiebreaker off the top of my head, and then I don't know if it's Indianapolis. I don't know who would have the tiebreaker between Tennessee and Cleveland. Cleveland, though, if they lose next week, could potentially not even make the playoffs.
Yeah. And you know, I was just saying they're a playoff team. Now that I think about it, it's possible for them not to be. You know, you have also, don't forget, you had as of this week before the games began, the Ravens, who were sitting on the outside looking in, who were 9-5. Now they beat the Giants. They're 10-5. If they go out next week, the Ravens do. If they beat the Bengals, well, now you've got an 11-5 Ravens team that's back in the mix. And if Cleveland's 10-6, you know, if the Colts have a tiebreaker over the Browns, or if they have the same record, then the Browns are definitely sitting on the outside looking in, and they're done, and they're not making the postseason.
Right, and right now, Baltimore has the head-to-head tiebreaker on Cleveland. So right now, Baltimore's sitting at the 6 because they
Yeah,
have
I was
the
gonna say
tiebreaker.
they beat the Giants. They should be in right now. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, they have the tiebreaker both over Indianapolis and Cleveland. So
Yeah.
this loss to the Jets, holy
It's
cow!
extremely, extremely damaging.
And I'm not gonna laugh at Cleveland fans. I'm gonna laugh at Rex Ryan if for some
Right.
reason they don't make the playoffs.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You can't you can't call this team out as a Super Bowl contender if they can't beat the Jets and might not even be in the postseason.
Right. And they're sitting at 2-3 in their division,
Yeah.
and they have to play Pittsburgh yet. Who Pittsburgh is playing for something. Yeah, you don't get a bye.
Right.
But think about it. Would you rather have a divisional home game if you win it the first week, or
Yeah.
go on the road?
Well, and honestly, I look at this Steelers team, and there is absolutely no way that they're resting or taking it easy next week. They
No.
went through a 3-game skid,
Huh?
and you are trying to get your team right again. You want to go out and blow the doors off this team. That's what you
Yeah,
want.
exactly. So yeah.
Yeah.
A couple more games here before we move on. The Dolphins come back, beat the Raiders in a wild game, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, I probably should have stuck with Russ at my quarterback, but I thought, they're playing the Rams. He never plays well against them.
Right.
They got a good defense.
And
The
he may
Raiders,
not, you know, we don't know, but
the Raiders defense isn't playing really well.
right.
Tua kind of at least hot. Freaking he goes out, lays an egg, gets benched in the fourth quarter. Thank the
I was
Lord.
listening to that game on the radio. I was in the car, and as soon as I heard Fitzpatrick come in, I was thinking, "Oh my God, the coach is going to be just livid because Tua goes to the bench.
So thank Lord for Gaskins. He got, and then I had
Yeah,
Adam
he did
Thielen,
great. Yeah.
who had a good day. Travis Kelsey, Calvin Ridley, they all had good games for me. So I made it up, but it's been way more interesting. I mean, I should have about 130 points right now. I had
Yeah.
Wilson from San Francisco on my bench.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, yeah, gotta love fantasy. But anyway, so the
Right.
Dolphins come back and win, and this was a must-win for them.
It was. Hands
It,
down. Yeah.
and even next week is a must-win for them.
It is
They
too. Yeah.
control their own destiny. They win, they're in. They lose, now it all comes down to tiebreakers. You never want to be in that. And I'm sure the coaches will look at all that and see what the scenarios are in either way to determine if, hey, can we a couple of these guys that are borderline dinged up, can we be competitive and possibly win and wrestling for the playoff game? But if we lose, if we're still in, does it matter? So I'm,
yeah. Yep.
you know, if I'm a coach, I'm like, no, let's just go and win so we don't have to worry about tiebreakers.
Right. Yeah. You don't even have to worry about it. You just go out and you win the game. Yeah. And I don't know what the Bills are going to do. The Bills play the Patriots tomorrow. I think the Bills are going to beat the Patriots, but then they play the Dolphins that last game. So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the Bills are going to rest a few guys when they play in that last game? Because they don't really need it. The Chiefs have the number one sewed up.
Well,
So
again,
do they want to do 2, 3? I mean, does it matter?
well, it does because say the top four all win,
Sure.
right? So you have 1 through 4 in the divisional round, and if Pittsburgh gets a 2, you're the 3, then whoever's the 4. Would you rather have Pittsburgh come to you, or would you rather go to Pittsburgh?
Sure.
And I get it. There's not fans or limited fans,
Right.
but it is different playing at your home stadium, sleeping in your own bed the night
Yeah,
before.
for the playoffs especially.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when people say that, I call boo on that because
Sure.
it's just like when I was, when we had made it where my previous school I coached at, when we made it down to state, a lot of schools would go down the night before, sleep, and then wake up, go through a routine. We went down the morning of because we wanted our kids to sleep in their bed, even though we had a 4-hour drive. We get down there early, check into the hotel. They could relax in the room before we headed to the stadium. But there was a benefit for that because they could sleep in their own bed the night before, stay in their normal routine as long as possible before having to go and travel. So when people say, "Oh, it's not," home field advantage isn't big. It is big.
Yeah.
From an outside perspective looking in, it might not be big because, who cares? No fans there. But from the mentality of a player or even a coach, being able to stay in your own routine, it is big. So and it's a rivalry game. If you go out and beat the Dolphins, you could knock them out of the playoffs.
Sure, you could.
And wouldn't you want to do that? Because the Dolphins are a team that, and I think I still like Fitzpatrick over Tua.
Mm-hmm.
If that defense clicks again, like they did for that 3-week stretch, you could find them in the AFC Championship game.
You could. They are dangerous enough on that side of the football. And not just Xavier Howard. I know a lot of people want to talk about him and how many interceptions he has, but it's indicative of how the defense is playing when you have a guy who is getting that many interceptions. The opportunities are there. So this D is playing, it has the potential to put them in that situation. Yes.
Right. So I wouldn't want to see them. I would much rather see a Cleveland team or
hands down.
Indianapolis team. Even though Indianapolis defense is good, right. I like any defense versus their offense because their offense is spotty. In Indianapolis.
Or even the Ravens. I know that people have been and I'm just
I know.
People have been saying, they put the Ravens back in the postseason, Lamar Jackson, blah, blah. No. This team is not built for a Super Bowl run. It's
I
not going to
mean,
happen. I'd
I
rather
mean,
see the Ravens.
yeah, you've won a couple games in a row. Okay, beating, you know, the Browns. Okay, I'll give you that decent
Yeah,
win. But you've beaten like the Giants. You've beaten Washington. You've beaten teams that you should beat.
yeah.
That's
And
like
next week, look, I mean, if you're the Ravens, one of my keep them or leave them, which before this started was the Ravens as a playoff team. Well, they're probably going to be a playoff team, but they're beating teams. They play the Bengals next week. They played the Giants this week. Yeah, these are teams they should go out and they should beat. They should have a chance to make the postseason based on beating these teams.
right. Right. So, let's see here. Any other games with consequence?
Well, I mean, not some of those early games, really to me weren't. The Saints destroyed the Vikings, the Buccaneers destroyed the Lions. No big deal in either one of those to me. It doesn't really tell me anything. Both the defenses that got destroyed are not very good, and the offenses have the potential. So that didn't really tell me a whole lot. The 49ers beating the Cardinals, though, I think is a big deal. Especially for the Cardinals. Look, they're in a position where they have to win this last game. They have no choice. They need to win. They need to be in the postseason. They need to kind of legitimize themselves and what's going on in
Well,
Arizona. So if they
it,
lose, they're in jeopardy of not being in the postseason.
and I'm not sure if you watched that game. I watched a good majority of it. Um, the Cardinals did not play well on either side of
Mm-hmm.
the ball, and that's concerning. This is the time of year where you should be playing well, and you heard that from Aaron Rodgers last week after the Carolina game. Everyone said, "Oh, great win." No, he goes, "That was a horrible win. I feel horrible. We
Right.
didn't play well. Yeah, we
Right.
won, but we didn't play well. We have to play better."
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Absolutely.
so you look at the Cardinals right now, again, they now need help to get in the playoffs. And just a couple weeks ago, we were talking about they are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
There's no way they're not going to get into the playoffs. And now you're on the outside looking in.
Well, and then you play the Rams next week,
Right. And then you play the
and the
Rams.
Rams have a lot to play for.
So you have to win next week, and you have to hope the Packers don't rest anybody and beat the Bears.
Right.
Um,
And I think that, that depends on this week. So I mean, if the Packers beat the Titans, that changes the complexity
yeah,
of how things
absolutely.
play out. Yeah. If the
Absolutely.
Packers lose, then they're going out with a vengeance and Chicago is just going to get
Well,
destroyed.
if they lose, because I think they have a game right now, they have a half game lead on the Saints.
Yeah,
So if they lose tonight, they'd be tied, but they have the tiebreaker. So
they do.
you win next week, you get the number one seed.
Right.
If you win tonight, even if you lose next week, which you never
You still
want to
get
say, oh, big deal if you lose, but if you
right.
lose next week because you're resting guys to get guys a couple extra days of rest to get healthy, the worst that can happen is you tie up the Saints, but since you have the head-to-head, you get the number one seed.
Right.
So tonight's game is big for a lot of teams.
It is. Yeah, it is.
The
Yeah.
Cardinals are hoping that the Packers lose tonight and have to play
Right.
everybody next week. The
Right.
Bears are hoping, hey, beat Tennessee, rest some guys so we can beat
And
them.
let us get in the postseason,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and to be honest, if I am a one of the top teams in the NFC, I much rather see the Bears
Oh, I hands down. I'd rather see the Bears than the Cardinals for sure.
because
Yeah.
the Cardinals again, they're kind of like the Dolphins defense. That offense, if that offense gets clicking,
Mm-hmm.
they could put up 40 points.
Right.
Or if they
Whereas
play,
Bears, I fear nothing from
yeah,
their team in the
I
playoffs.
mean, you scored 30 some points against the Jaguars
Right.
and the Lions.
Right.
I mean,
I
come on,
mean, these too little, too late. You were lucky enough to be in a position to kind of maybe eke into the playoffs, possibly. But you're beating teams that you should beat, and so you put up that many points on these teams. It doesn't impress me in any way, shape, or form.
right? Exactly.
So
Well, all right, Lone Wolf. I think it's time to head to keep them or leave them. You said you had some. I have a couple but
Yeah.
they might be the same as yours. So I'll let you fire them off.
Okay.
And we'll get her on going.
Well, I think this is still an interesting one, even though I mentioned it. And that was a keep 'em or leave 'em of Ravens as a playoff team.
Well, I mean, it's going to be keep them with a caveat. Now,
Yeah.
if you're talking about just making the playoffs, so keep them. They're going to make the
Right.
playoffs. But as a threat, as a dangerous playoff team, I'll leave them.
Sure.
They might make the divisional round, but that's as far as they go. I don't see them as a serious contender or threat to make it to the Super Bowl.
And this other one is a good one. I think we talked about it before. Cowboys win the NFC East.
Um, oh God, if that happened, I'm gonna leave it. Um,
Okay.
just because right now they're losing.
Yeah.
They are losing to the Eagles, and they're running Ezekiel Elliott. Well, you know what? But anyways,
Yeah.
I would leave them. Um, they don't have enough defensively to slow anybody down here. Um, Now the winner of this game is still alive because Washington is losing to
Right.
Carolina.
Right. They're leaving the door open. I mean, this is a possibility. That's why I wanted to throw this one out there.
So,
You know, we laughed
so
about it a week or two ago, but
if Washington loses, they're 6-9,
yes.
and the
And if Dallas
winner,
wins, they have the same record.
if Dallas wins, they have the same record. I think Washington has the tiebreaker though.
Sure. So Washington has to lose again in order for the Cowboys to win
But
and win the division,
but
but
if the Eagles win, they're a half game back, and they play Washington next week.
oh my God, they're 4-9-1. They could win the division
And yes, the only team,
from last to first.
yeah,
Oh boy.
yeah, yeah.
You know what? I mean, keep them or leave them. Taking a bet on any of these teams right now is so difficult. Um, it's just so hard to even say, you know, who's going to do it. I just wanted to at least throw that one out there because I thought it was interesting. You just never know with the NFC East what it's going to end up being.
Let's see here. I gotta. Let's see. I'm just trying to see here. I'll start with Keith Williams on this.
Sure. Yep.
The Kansas City Chiefs are 100% the favorites to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'll leave them.
You're gonna leave
Yeah, I
them.
mean that. Yeah, they're definitely not 100%. It's more like 47%. I don't know. I mean, I mean, they're there. They're definitely one of the best teams in football, no question. But they're not 100% guaranteed.
Ben Roethlisberger has enough left in the tank to win another Super Bowl.
Hmm. Hmm. That's a good one. You know, you look at it at the beginning of the year as opposed to now. It makes you wonder if that's the case. I'll say leave them. I'll say leave them.
Mitch Trubisky has shown enough these last 3 weeks to warrant being the Bears starting quarterback next year.
That's a really good one, Coach. Leave him. No, you know, this is just he's so up and down that you know people forget about a lot of the turnover-filled games that he's had. I don't think he's in the right situation, and this whole thing in Chicago is just not working out. So no, leave him.
Let's see. Carson Wentz will never start for an NFL franchise again.
Oh, I leave that. Uh, yeah, I leave that 100%. Even if he's not with the Eagles next year, which I don't think he will be, somebody will take a chance on him and give him the chance to start.
And then finally, the Cowboys will trade Ezekiel Elliott to the New York Jets next year.
I, I don't know if I can keep that one just because I don't know that he's going to end up in the Jets. But
That's the big rumor.
you know what? I don't know. I'll say keep him. And they need to clear out the cap space. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I don't care. I'm going for it. I'll just say keep him.
I mean, I threw the Jets part in there
Right.
because that's been a lot of the chatter is that the Jets would want him to have the cap space for him.
Right. Right.
They have the draft capital to get him. I
I
chuckle
say keep him.
because
Why not?
that'd be the second, like, kind of washed up, really good running back
Young
they
running back.
paid
Yeah.
for.
Yeah.
The first is Le'Veon Bell. I'm
And boy,
sure.
did he make a bad mistake in his career.
Well, and I'm sure Elliott is going to. They're going to want a ton for him.
Sure.
But I just don't.
If you're the Jets and you do this, I mean, if you really want to doom yourself to being bad, then you make moves like this. I mean, I just feel like you get a guy like Elliott who could be really good, but you'd have to have good quarterback play and a good offensive line, and you don't have either one of those if you're the Jets.
Right. All right. Next, our weekly hot seat. And I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to shock you with this this week's hot seat.
Okay.
Some things have happened this week that it's hard to keep my hot seat the way it was because I just know how front offices kind of think and don't make smart decisions. But anyways, here we go.
I got a new name on my
Whoa.
list as well. So
All right.
yeah.
I'm gonna let you get started.
Okay.
Here's this week's hot seat.
Okay. First person is my new name. And it you might be thinking along the same lines, but we'll see. Number 5, you were on a long-term plan with this team. You were supposed to put this team in a position to be in the playoffs. You had a lot of draft picks. A lot of things had been moving around. You're supposed to put the talent there, and it has not materialized this year. And that is Mr. John Gruden of the
Whoa.
Raiders. You are on the hot seat.
Wow.
Because I think people were expecting a little bit more out of them, and they really fell apart at the end of the year here. They did not contend for a playoff spot as they should have. And I think that the seat's it's simmering. It's simmering. So I'm putting John Gruden on the hot seat because of his inability to close it out at the end of the season here.
All right. Well, woo, that is a new one. That is a new one. I'm not too. I mean, I'm disappointed because I thought the
Right.
Raiders would be a lot better,
Right.
but I think that we put them probably a year or two ahead of where we would like them to be. Realistically, that the quarterback situation is not good. Carr does not fit well into that offense. Even though he's put up decent numbers, I don't think he'll be the quarterback there. I think they're lean on defensive talent, which they still have draft.
Shows clearly.
They still have draft capital yet this year. So I would grant that he's probably in my top 8 because the pressure is going to build because of the massive contract he got. But here's the thing: I believe it's a guaranteed contract. So I don't see them moving on from him.
No, no,
letting him.
and I don't see it either. I mean, I see, like I said, it's simmering, but I don't see him, getting the boot or anything right now.
For me, my number 5, still the same as last week. They did pull off the victory this week, but I think ownership. Again, it's kind of been they were spoiled with the coach that was there before. They didn't have, they never won the Super Bowl, but they were constantly in the playoff or in the hunt. And then things fell apart and he left. But that's Zach Taylor over with the Bengals is my number 5 for the hot seat. I just think you pull off the win today, but I think ownership's going to be a little bit more impatient with um, Taylor because of the success Marvin Lewis had and the length of success he had.
Yeah, and I'm actually in that same boat with you. I have him as my number 4, and one reason that he's at number 4 is I needed a 5, and I needed somebody who I didn't think was going to get fired. But I was going to put Zach Taylor lower, and I was thinking, well, if I want to put Gruden in there, I got to have him in there where I think he's touching the hot seat. It's like a hot plate just kind of warming up. It's not quite there. Zach Taylor a little bit more, like you said, they're used to some of the success from Marvin Lewis, ups and downs, but some success. Um, Now Zach Taylor has gone out and has won 2 games in a row here. He beat the Steelers, and then they just won again this week against the Texans. So it looks like you're building on something, and maybe that will keep him away from the hot seat. But we had talked about it for next year. Immediately next year, they have to be a lot more competitive next year. You went out and you got Joe Burrow, and we both were critical of Joe Burrow, but the expectation is that he's going to be good, and the expectation is that you're going to be better next year than you were the last 2 years. So in your third year, you really have to deliver. And I think it's appropriate for him to be in there on the hot seat. He's not getting the axe at the end of this year, but he's definitely going to have to put something together going into next year.
All right, my number 4, and again, no, I'm gonna switch it. This is gonna be a surprise, but there's a lot of chatter. The team is doing well, I guess you could say, but there's been a lot of talk about how unhappy the quarterback is with the offense and calls for this individual to be fired. And with the amount of money that they've invested in said quarterback, ownership might be like, no, this isn't what we expected. We expected you to be the top of the conference, the top of the NFL, and that is Bruce Arians.
Woo! Okay. All right.
If the Buccaneers do not at least make the NFC Championship game, I could see Tampa Bay firing Bruce Arians because they expected a Super Bowl this year.
Yeah. That's a good one. He was kind of on the outside looking in for me. I kind of had him in my periphery because there had been some talk about that. About some disagreements. Now, granted, they were 8-5. Now they're 10-5. They won a couple of games, but some of that chatter died down. But you're right. The expectation is you've got a quarterback who's at the end of his career. You brought in all these guys. You want to win now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, no, that's a good one. I was not expecting that one. That's a good one. All right, so moving on to my number 3. A lot of these guys now, I had my surprise. The rest of them are the old tried and true because unfortunately for them, they're going to be either gone or they're close to being gone. My number 3 is a guy who it'll be interesting. I want to see how this plays out over the course of the end of the year. I think these last couple of games could go a long way to determining his fate. We've talked about ownership here. We've talked about how this team looks at it, and they wanted to build around this guy and what they had. But I don't know how much patience they'll have. It really depends, and we've talked about that too. And that's Vic Fangio with the Denver Broncos. Just kind of on the cusp, I think. It really, to me, if they just go out and they get throttled and they're 5-11 at the end of the year, it might be something they consider moving on from him in the offseason. If they finish, 7-9 and they look like they're not that bad, or they're at least competitive, he might stick around for another year, at least into next year, to see what happens.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think Elway understands they don't have a quarterback,
Right.
and I think that um, because of that, they're going to go get a quarterback in the draft this year, and then give Fangio at least another year or two to see what he can do. Because Drew Lock is not turning out to be the quarterback that they thought he was going to be. So my number three, and again, I omitted Mike McCarthy off my list because comments from the organization said we're not firing him. So
Right. And I did the same thing, Coach. He's my number 6.
if the organization comes out and says we're not firing him, then there's no point of putting him on the hot seat because they're saying they're not going to make a change. Now they could, but with that information, with the information we have, that's what I'm going on with. My decisions here. I'm going to leave. Again, just like you said, these next couple of games could really have a determining factor in the fate of this coach, and especially if they win these last 2 games, then he's totally off the hot seat, at least for this season, because they're in the playoffs. But that's Doug Peterson is my number 3. Again, if they win these last 2 games and win the NFC East, even if it's at 6-9-1, he can go and say, hey, look, we made a change. We have Jalen Hurts. He's good. Let's trade Carson, blah, blah, blah. I'm open to all these changes. Because I think what was getting Peterson in trouble before is he was so consumed in, I'm going to make it work with Wentz.
Right.
That got him into a rabbit hole. And then I think ownership basically sat him down and said, look, if you're going to leave Wentz in there, you're going down with him if he stays.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. And
I mean, right now they're up 14-3 on the Cowboys in the first quarter.
Right.
I mean,
I see that, and Washington is losing 13
right
to nothing against the Panthers here.
So
yeah.
So Doug Peterson is my number 3.
Yeah, and he's my number 2, and he kind of moved down from the number 1 because we I looked at the scenarios that we had, and he had the willingness to move on from Wentz and to go to Hurts and to make some changes that maybe needed to be made. Coaches need to go out there and win games. It doesn't matter how you do it. For the most part. I mean, you have to do it ethically, but you go out and you win games. And that's what Peterson needed to do. And if they do pull this off and they do win the division, I could still see Philadelphia moving on from him anyway, just because of how this year went. But it may make it easier to keep him if it ends up that you do win the division, you make the postseason. But I still think that they move on from him. I don't know how the rest of the season is going to play out, but I still think they do. He's high on my list because of, creating this quarterback controversy in the first place and, going back and forth for so long. Choose a guy and stick with him. I just can't stand that. So he's my number 2.
Yeah, and man, it kills me to say this for my number 2. It really does, but I have to look at the ownership, the management, and where the team stands. And I can't believe I'm going to say it, but coming all the way off the Walking Dead list, Matt Nagy is my number 2. I understand the wins aren't good. They beat bad teams, but the bottom line is they are as of right now in the playoffs. And if they end up being in the playoffs, they are not going to get rid of Matt Nagy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is good for the rest of the NFC North.
Oh, for sure. I
but
mean, yeah, definitely.
but I don't see them moving on from a coach that again had the foresight to make a coaching change and then um, go on and make the playoffs. I just don't see them doing it. So he is my number two.
Yeah. Well, and I stuck with somebody I think that is gone pretty much no matter what happens over the last two games, just because of the track record over the course of the 3 years that he's been there, and that's Anthony Lynn with the Chargers. I think to me it doesn't matter if they go 7-9 at the end of the year. I think he's going to be out, and they're going to bring somebody else in to work with the young quarterback and moving forward and building the defense, because he's had his shot. He's had his time. He loses too many close games. Even if you are 7-9 this year, I guess it's just not enough for this Chargers franchise, because I think they're looking at it and saying, we have a guy we can build with, but I think they're going to bring somebody else in to work with with Justin Herbert as they move forward. So Anthony Lynn is my number one, because I think he's going to be gone no matter what happens.
I agree. Anthony Lynn is my number one also. Yeah, I just think, you know, even if they win these last two games, um, he can't fall back and say, well, this is the first year I had a quarterback.
Right.
You had Philip Rivers your first two seasons.
Right.
So, and you couldn't really do anything with that. So, I agree. Anthony Lynn, the Chargers will be looking for a new head coach to mentor Justin Herbert, who I think is going to be, and in my opinion, the best quarterback for a career out of this draft class.
Right.
That was
And
right now. You could have Jalen Hurts, you could have Jordan Love, could end up being blah blah blah. But as of right now, with what you see,
yeah.
um, I really like Justin Herbert. The Chargers hit, for right now, hit a home run with it. So
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that. I mean, we've talked about this. Better than Tua, better than Joe Burrow, better than Hurts, Love, whomever else is out of this class, and he has played like an NFL starter in most of his games. And he was an NFL starter. You're going to have clunkers, so he had a few of those, but for the most part, he's played well and against good teams.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's our hot seat list. Now I also have our Walking Dead list. Matt Nagy, for me, let's make a comment about this. I left him in limbo between the lists because there's still a possibility of him not making the playoffs, and I think if he doesn't make the postseason, I think he's out. I mean, honestly, I think he's going to be gone, because even though they've won these last couple of games, it's just still too disappointing for an unforgiving Chicago franchise. I feel like he would be out for everything that had gone on for the last couple of years. I don't know what your feelings are about that, but to me, he's still in limbo. If they lose and they don't make the postseason, I think he's still going to be gone.
Well, I agree. He has to make the postseason. That's why he's at my number two, because there's
Yeah,
still an outside shot. If they lose next week and Arizona would pull off the upset, then Arizona gets in and the
right.
Bears don't. Um, I'm going off the assumption that they both lose next week, Bears get in, and
Sure,
that saves his job.
sure.
So,
And he just disappoints me all the way around, because David Montgomery, you know, they're talking about how he's playing well now. Where was this at the beginning of the year? I mean, I understand that there are injury issues and there are things that are going on, but the Bears did not run the football effectively with anybody until what? Just now? last week. I mean, what have you been doing to get him involved? And when we talked about the Packer game, David Montgomery ripped off that huge run in the Packer game, right?
Right.
And then we saw nothing of him after that. Now, granted, the Bears got down, but you can't just immediately abandon the run. And I felt like after that point, the Bears abandoned the run, even though they were still in the game for a little bit.
Right. Exactly.
So that's the thing that bugs me about Nagy. And probably a lot of Bears fans too. So Walking Dead list, the same guys, the usual jokers are on that list, starting with our friend Adam Gase, even though they just won a game.
Two
games in a row here. And then Doug Marrone, of course. So.
Yeah. And to be honest, if we had I would flip-flop those. I put Doug Marrone at the very top.
Above Adam Gase right now, yeah.
They haven't even shown up the last 3 weeks.
Right.
In Jacksonville. It's like they haven't even shown up.
He knows he's walking out the door.
Yeah. Everybody, the entire coaching staff knows. They've already been, probably having phone conversations with other teams, colleges, things like that, to find a job next year. So, it's just a matter of time. And next week, either Sunday night or Monday, we'll hear that Doug Marrone has been fired along with the rest of his staff. So, and after next week, we won't have a Walking Dead list. We'll have a dead list.
Right, just be gone.
They'll be gone. So
yeah.
So, but then our hot seat will turn our attention to the NBA. Is that even though the NBA is early in the season, again, NBA is not afraid to make coaching changes.
No, I'm a little anxious for that. I'm getting kind of ready because I'm figuring, like you said, I could see 8-10 games in, somebody just axes their coach, and I want to see who that's going to be. I mean, I kind of want to see who needs some early success and dig into that a little bit and make some predictions about who I think is going to get the heave-ho here. So.
All right. So this brings us to our final segment, and my favorite segment since we started this. The Beavis comment of the week. And this was early in the week. And it's funny because what I do is I listen to talk radio as I drive into school every day. And I have to remember around the time of the day and the show that I hear it because I'm driving, so I can't stop and record this stuff. So that's why I texted you and I said, I don't know if I'll have audio. Well, I got audio.
Oh, perfect.
So this comment was made back Monday, and well, especially after these last couple of weeks, we'll see what your reaction is to this comment about our friend that's not Adam Gase, but a coach in New York.
When they started 0-5 and 1-7, Key was out there saying they could make the playoffs. It's insane. I couldn't see it. Then they started edging their way there. Yeah. And Joe Judge was getting praise. I mean, obviously, when you come from the Belichick-Saban tree, you probably learned a couple things on the way out the door.
Probably just a few.
Give me a grade on him. I don't think he can win NFL Coach of the Year because honestly, these last couple of weeks have taken just a little shine off, but they continue to play really hard for a guy that didn't have too much of an NFL pedigree at the head coaching or even coordinator level, technically speaking. He came in hardcore, Tom Coughlin, Parcells, except without the Lombardis, and people are like, man, you're going to lose this team right away. Instead, he grabbed them by the throat and said, fellas, you're coming with me. I know what I'm doing. Right now, grade for Judge.
I'm giving him an A-, Zoo. I'm giving him an A-. And coming into this season, I thought the Giants could be a 7 or 8 win team if every.
Do you agree that Joe Judge should get an A- grade for this season?
No. There's a reason this is a Beavis comment. Come on now. A-. Come on.
And if I would let the clip play the next minute, 2 minutes, he goes on and talks about because the Giants had, I think, 1 or 2 clunker games in there. where they didn't play well. He
Right.
goes, if those wouldn't have happened, he would have given him an A plus.
Oh my God, really?
Yes. Now
Oh
the
boy.
key, the question is, Lone Wolf, do you know who that is?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it here for a second. I'm trying to think of who said that. I don't. I can't think of his name. I don't. Last 2 weeks I got it. This week I don't know.
Is Chris Canty.
Oh, Chris.
He filled in on the Keyshawn J. Will Zubin show and made that comment.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
and that I recognized that. I just didn't. I couldn't recognize him off the top of my head there. But that's the thing. No, look, he's done a few nice things with the team. He's
yeah,
brought them a few wins here, and he's given them more than what we expected in his first year in New York. But he's not an A minus or A plus. He's not doing an A plus job with this team. No, I mean, yeah, people will say that because you lost Saquon Barkley, and people were like, oh my God, look at how good they're doing. Well, he's one player, and yes, he's a great player, but the rest of the team still has to come along, and they benefit from playing a horrible schedule and playing
right.
in the worst division in football. You
I
put them in a different division, and they're not anywhere close to where they are right now.
mean, okay, you beat Washington by 1.
Yeah.
Then you beat Washington by 3. You beat an Eagles team, which that was right at that time where we were like, no way Doug Peterson is making it out of that city.
Right.
By 10. You beat the Bengals by 2, and then you upset the Seahawks by 5.
Right. And really that's the win that I think people pointing to and saying that he did such an amazing job by beating the Seahawks. Like, great. Okay, you beat one good team in that list. Everybody else doesn't have a winning record, so what are you telling us? You beat teams that have losing records. You also have a losing record.
Right.
I mean, I would say, I anticipated that he was going to be an F when he started, right? So I would say, for what he's done in now and being able to coach his team, I give him maybe a C.
See, now I look at these last 3 weeks as reality here. You
Yeah.
lose to the Cardinals 26-7. You lose to the Browns 20-6, which
Lose to the Ravens.
not a bad loss, but then you lose to the Ravens 27-13.
Right.
That's not good.
Yeah.
Not good. So, yeah, I
A
just
minus. Oh boy.
I can't believe. It's Joe Judge outperformed as a coach what I thought too. I thought this was going to be an absolute disaster, and it's not. He held it together. If they were in any other division, though, we wouldn't even be talking about the Giants.
No.
But because
I
they're
mean,
in,
it's a joke that a team who's 4-9-1 has a shot at winning a division. That's a
right,
joke. That is an actual. That's a comedic joke. Somebody could stand up on stage and make it part of their routine, and people would laugh. But yet, it's reality. The Eagles actually have a chance to do that and win that division.
well, and right now the Panthers are trouncing Washington. You have Dwayne Haskins in there, who I'm sorry shouldn't even be playing because of his stupid, idiotic, selfish decision he did last week.
Right.
How as an
this is a joke. Why
organization,
is he even in there? Yeah.
how can you atone for that type of behavior? And if you listen to this and you don't know what we're talking about, Mr. Dwayne Haskins, who just wants an opportunity, went to a strip club, maskless, violated NFL protocols, yet he's still playing.
Yeah. Explain that one to me.
Yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
I don't get that.
I really want to know because
Well, and honestly, that falls on Goodell, and I'm glad you brought that up because what bothers me is I read an article about the Ravens getting less of a fine for their COVID violations than other teams were getting. Where's the consistency from the NFL on this? Why are they favoring the Ravens over other teams that are getting hit harder and that are getting draft picks stripped from them. And why does a guy like Dwayne Haskins get to do this and still come out and play on Sunday?
Right. So you're telling me, like, if those Broncos quarterbacks would have went to a strip club maskless, they would have delayed that game so they could have played.
Yeah, that would have been fine.
Right?
Yeah.
Instead of just basically telling the Broncos, oh, you're losing this game.
Right. Too bad. Yeah.
But no.
We need you to lose this game. So.
But it's just it's infuriating because that shouldn't be how it works. He should not be playing this game.
Mm-hmm. I agree, 100%. Yeah, and that's this is another Goodell move. I mean, I know we put a lot of it on Goodell, but he deserves the fire and he deserves the criticism that he gets for these kind of things.
So I mean, and I'm sorry, I like Ron Rivera. I'm glad Washington's getting pounded right now.
Yeah.
Because you don't deserve to win this game. You don't deserve to make the playoffs if you're going to allow this stuff to happen. And again, it doesn't matter what your feelings are on the whole mask and COVID stuff. It's a policy. It's a rule.
Right.
You need to follow it. Oh, wait. Yes and no. Yeah, we can kind of, bend rules for people as we see fit. That's how Roger Goodell runs the NFL.
Yeah, basically.
This is what you did. You did it wrong. Here's the penalty. He's just been so inconsistent with it. And this goes all the way back years to the Ray Rice situation with the domestic abuse.
Oh, right. Yeah, for sure.
This has been going on his entire career as commissioner. There's been no consistency with penalty for violating policies or rules
none
in
whatsoever.
the NFL. It's almost like, hey, give us a smaller fine. We'll kind of, pad your retirement account.
Yeah.
Type thing.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on calling out Ron Rivera. You could start Kyle Allen in this game. You don't have to start Dwayne Haskins. Why are you putting him out there? Why are you rewarding his behavior?
I'll tell you right now, I bet you Kyle Allen would be doing a lot better job.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the box score? Let's look at the box score here. Dwayne Haskins, 5 for 11, 37 yards, and an INT.
You can't get much worse than that.
I knew that he was not going to be a good NFL quarterback when he was in college. Just like Justin Fields is not going to be a good NFL quarterback. Don't draft Justin Fields, people. He's not even going to be in my top 10.
Yeah. People get enamored with them, but I think that's good fodder for us when we get to the draft and talking about where these guys are going to come from college. But I look at this and I see you're right with what's going on with Goodell. It's just a pattern of behavior. It's just a total pattern of behavior about inconsistency. Well, this guy can play, this guy can't. Why he just decides these things arbitrarily? Why even follow the rules? Why even have the rule if you don't even intend to follow it?
Exactly. And that's the frustrating thing, I think, for lots of not just fans but organizations too, because there's a push to get rid of Goodell. There are organizations that do not like him as their commissioner. And that I would agree. If you're changing I go back to this whole delay the Baltimore game 3 times. So now Pittsburgh has to play 12 or 3 games in 12 days. But yet Denver asks for just delay it a day so he can get these guys retested so they test negative, and then the NFL says no.
Right.
They're scheduled to play on Sunday. What would be the big deal of moving it to Monday night?
Yeah, none at all.
None
at all. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, totally can't do that. But Baltimore, you're supposed to play what was it? Thursday. Now we're going to switch it to Sunday. Oh, there's still positive. We're going to switch it to Tuesday. Oh, there's still positive. We're going to switch it to Wednesday.
Yeah.
What?
Well, What the hell is that?
At some point, they should have said, "Well, play with who you got."
Yeah, and that's what it is. You just play with who you have. I mean, this season's been an unusual one in the way things have gone. Every team has had to deal with it in some capacity, so just deal with it.
So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting. But I'm sure this won't be the last time. I'm sure this stuff's going to come up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
With COVID, I'm sure there's going to be some playoff games that teams are going to want delayed, and I sure hope the league office says no. You're scheduled to play these days, and you're going to play. Doesn't matter.
And look, if you're in the postseason, you just have to be smart about it as an organization and as players. If you want to go out to a strip club without a mask and you want to have this stuff, and maybe you will but if you're on a playoff team, this is going to impact you and impact your chances in the playoffs. Then pay the penalty for it. If you do that, then you're going to pay the penalty for it. You don't play, and you hurt your team.
So what's going to happen? This is just hypothetical.
Right.
Chiefs, Packers, Super Bowl. Day before the Super Bowl, Patrick Mahomes tests positive for COVID.
Right.
Oh, we got to delay the Super Bowl for a week. Can't have Patrick Mahomes missing the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Packers. Oh, Devontae Adams tests positive. Oh, you guys can play. You have other receivers.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see something like that being the case. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It shouldn't matter, but that's the league, and I can see Goodell, like, oh well, the ratings are going to be worse if he doesn't play, so we can't allow that to happen. Too bad.
Yeah,
play the damn game.
Too bad. Now again, hypothetical. I probably won't happen, but it could.
Sure.
No.
And I mean, we're not going to pick on any one given team. That's just an example. I mean, it could be anybody from any of the teams that make the postseason. But this inconsistency from the NFL is what bothers me. And in the postseason, the penalty should be there. Look, if you're out with COVID and you don't get to play, they're not going to move those playoff games.
Right.
Those games. This is for all the marbles, people. This is what matters. You're in the postseason, so take care of yourself. And maybe you get COVID through no fault of your own. That's possible, but generally speaking, you're a professional athlete. Your body is what you make your money with, so you better take care of yourself, and the coaches better enforce that stuff.
Exactly. We'll see what happens, but with that, one other thing I just want to get your opinion on. We'll delve in this a little more. I think probably like an off-season football type story we can talk about more. College football playoff. I don't know about you, Lone Wolf. I do not view the college football playoff winner, and I'm going to call them a winner, as the NCAA champion. I look at the FCS champion as the NCAA champion because that's an NCAA sanctioned tournament. Mm-hmm. The CFP is not sanctioned by the NCAA. They have their own rules. It's not an NCAA selection committee that's selecting these teams. I think it's a farce. It's all about money. I think that any major conference, their conference champion should be included in the playoff, but they'll never do that because it'll hurt money. And you look at this. I mean, they moved the Rose Bowl because Notre Dame whined about they weren't going to go play if they couldn't have family there.
Yep.
So again, bending rules for certain universities.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have any. I have no love lost for the CFP. I hate it. I don't even care about that level of college football anymore. I enjoy the FCS stuff. North Dakota and Appalachian State. Those teams that can qualify for the NCAA tournament.
Right. And I think college football, we talked about in the past having a playoff. And I think they should have done that and had a playoff, because before the old format, whoever's number 1, number 2, they play, and that wasn't working. I think they needed to have a playoff. But the way that they set it up, this is absolutely incorrect. I agree with you. It's all about money. It's just about greed and about how much money they can line their pockets with. And are these really even the best 4 teams that made it in? And I mean, we didn't talk about college football a lot, but I'm sorry. Notre Dame, you go out and you get shellacked by Clemson, and you're still in the playoff.
How are you a top 4 team? How? Yeah. So you're matched up, so you can possibly have another rematch.
Right.
And get blown out again in the championship game?
Yeah. They're not that good. I mean, they're just not. So
and in all these years, how does the Pac-12 not get a team into the playoff?
Right.
There,
complete disrespect for these conferences, and it's favoritism and disrespect for other conferences. It's completely ridiculous, and this is not. This needs to be an NCAA tournament. Like the basketball tournament is popular because there's so many different teams in it. Some people say they don't like the small schools being in it, and they just want the big schools in there. And you can tell that a lot of the ESPN talking heads have that opinion, or they disrespect some of these. And there's some that I really like that don't, but I wish that college football would follow more of that example. And at least, like you said, put the teams in there from the top of those conferences. Whoever was at the top of those big conferences, put them in there. If you don't want to include the small guys, fine. Then put the big guys in there from the conferences.
Come up with 8 college football conference champions: Pac-12, Mountain West, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC. That's 6 right there. Conference USA, 7. And I'm probably missing a conference. That'd be 8. You just let them in. And I don't like this whole thing. Well, they won the regular season championship. They lost in the conference championship game. Yeah. And they're not the conference champion. I'm sorry, Alabama. You lost. So we're not going to sit there and stroke your back and say, it's okay, we're going to still give you a shot.
Right.
You lose. I don't like this. I don't like it. I really think it is time that if the CFP, that if they want to do that, fine. Go be your own entity.
Right. An independent entity outside of the NCAA, right?
From the NCAA, and if a major university wants to financially sponsor that team, go ahead. But it should not. No money from the NCAA should go into those programs. No public money should go into those programs.
Yep.
And then the NCAA
can do whatever you want. Then, yeah.
And they sit there and they advertise and push the FCS, and they come out and say, "This is our national champion."
Mm-hmm.
Period. Because I'm sorry, the CFP could easily do a NCAA tournament and still make enough money.
Oh yeah, I mean, and you look at teams. No matter what, there's always a conversation about a team that gets left out of these situations where they're like, well, they were good, but they're not going to be in it. Like, Texas A&M, I think they were number 5, right? I mean, Jimbo Fisher's team. Who's to say that they couldn't be a team that would be in this mix and have a shot at it? Why not have a tournament, a round robin tournament style, or a single elimination, I should say, a single elimination tournament style, where you put in those other teams? Yeah, whatever. When they designed this and they said, "Oh, we're going to expand this and we're going to have 4 teams," great. But the way that they set it up, like you said, this is not correct. It lines some people's pockets, but it's not doing what's best for football and for fans.
Yeah, and I don't agree with a conference getting 2 teams in.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I don't care if your number 2 team would beat the champion in another conference. Guess what? then switch conferences.
Yeah.
You can do that. Your university can say, we don't want to be in the SEC anymore because we can't get into that top slot. So we're going to go to the Big 12, or we're going to go to the Big 10, or we're going to go to the ACC.
Yeah, you don't tell me that teams don't switch conferences all the time. I mean, this is so prevalent right now. Yeah.
So there's a way to do it. They just don't want to do it. They want all the money from the SEC, but then they want the rules changed so they don't have to be that top team.
Well, and maybe you give a wild card team a chance. Maybe you have 7 or 8 conferences, or you have 7 conferences, but you give an 8th team, so you have an even number, and you say it's a wild card from one of those conferences, and then that way that team still gets in. You have 8 teams, you move on. I don't know. I mean,
but that still comes down to arbitrary. You always know that probably the SEC is probably going to get that second team.
Yeah. Well, but this year that wasn't the case. I mean, you look at it, Notre Dame and Clemson are in there from the ACC, right? So
that's so rare, Lone Wolf. If you go back and look at it, historically the SEC gets 2 teams in.
Yeah, you're right. And
if you just go with 8 conferences, then the conference champ is in.
Right.
That's fine. But now if the conference wants to say, you know what, it's going to be our regular standing conference champion, and it doesn't matter if you win the conference championship game, well, that's fine by me. But that's a determination by the conference then.
Sure. Well, and the problem is, why do these teams and why do these conferences have a conference championship, and why do the holdouts now have conference championship games that didn't before? Because of the money. I mean, and that's really the bottom line, is they all added one, they all needed one because of the money that's involved.
Right.
Bottom line.
And so, if people wonder why we don't talk about college football that much, it's because of this. It's because of it. It's who has money. And you are lying to yourself if you don't think the players from Alabama, Auburn, Clemson, Notre Dame, Ohio State, those major universities that are always in the playoff, aren't getting money under the table.
Yeah.
Get your head out of the dirt. They're getting paid.
Yeah.
They're getting paid. So don't sit here and tell me, oh, they get a scholarship. Oh, I know that, but they're also getting money.
Right. And it's coming in different forms.
Right.
Sometimes you get a car or something, like, okay, fine. You're not getting money, but you're getting a free car. Fine. There's some way, shape, or form they're getting an extra benefit that they shouldn't be getting.
Right. And I'm telling you, these people that have this money are smart enough to hide it.
Yeah.
And the ones that get caught don't hide it well. Right. So let's just cut the BS and just say, you know what? Go do your own thing. You're not associated with the NCAA.
Mm-hmm.
We're cutting off public funding to you because you obviously can get private funding for all this stuff.
Yeah, clearly.
And move on.
Right.
So we'll talk more about that. We get after the NFL season's over in that kind of lull before the draft.
Yeah, we'll get into some of that college.
We'll get into that some more. Maybe at that point we will be our visual live broadcast through. I'm trying to think of all the platforms we're going to be going to. YouTube.
I know there's going to be.
It'll be YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, YouTube and Facebook, Twitter. No, Twitter's Periscope. Then Sportscaster, and I think there's one more in there. I would have to look. But Twitch. We're going to be on Twitch. So
streaming on Twitch.
We're going to be on everything. So maybe we can get a guest to come in, and talk about some of this stuff also. So but we'll see. We got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline here very, very quickly. Our next show will be what I believe we're still doing New Year's Eve, correct, Lone Wolf?
We can do that. Yeah. I mean, right now, my plans for New Year's are, not hanging out at a big party. So
Same here. So, and then after that, that may be our final audio only show.
yeah, I think so.
So,
That'd be great.
so
Yeah.
we will definitely. We still got some things to test out, but with the holidays and stuff, that's kind of just hard to figure out. So after New Year, we'll get that all tweaked out for everybody. So, anything else, Lone Wolf, before we call it a show?
No, I think that's good. I think we covered everything we wanted to in this show.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Hope you had a great holidays. And we will talk to everybody on New Year's Eve. Have a great day.
Have a good one.